I'm Phil Pollack. We're here at the 41st Annual Virginia State Frisbee Championships, and I've competed in every one, I'm happy to say. I've been playing Frisbee since the summer of 1965. I grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of kids, a lot of baseball and basketball and football, and I was generally one of the last ones chosen to play, not a particularly athletic kid. And I also was fortunate to go to summer camp for 12 years growing up. In the summer of '65, I was a counselor at Camp White Mountain in West Virginia before my freshman year at Cornell. And I was walking by another counselor and a bunch of campers throwing a Frisbee one day. This counselor had just graduated from Princeton, and he said, "Come on and play with us." And I said, "I'm not very good at that kind of thing." And he says, "If you're going to Cornell, you better learn how to play Frisbee." This guy's name was Ed Lee, so let me just say, Ed Lee, wherever you are, thank you. So I started playing Frisbee, and it took a while. At the beginning, it was a little sloppy, but I kept playing. Freshman year, I was one of the regular people out there playing, just play and catch, back and forth. We didn't play golf. Ultimate hadn't been invented. Springtime, it started to click. You know, the muscle memory, I became one of the regular Frisbee players, and Frisbee then was considered pretty much an alternative sport. And what's interesting is sometimes we'd be out playing and somebody would walk by and say, "Do you also skateboard?" Because skateboarding was an alternative sport, like the two had nothing to do with each other. And I just kept playing. The first tournament I won was a combined distance and accuracy tournament at Cornell. I won a fifth of bourbon, which I gave my father. Then I went to the University of Wisconsin for graduate school. And if you've ever been on the Madison campus, you know that the letters in sciences quadrangle is Bascom Hill. And my regular partner there, a guy named Bill Zimmerman, no relation to Scott Zimmerman or Bob Dylan to my knowledge. I was a stronger thrower than my friend Bill. And so for 2 years when we played catch on Bascom Hill, I threw uphill. And so that's good for your game. Let me just say at this point, my recommendation to those of you who are out there playing disc golf, if you want to make your game better, don't just play golf. Go out and get a nice disc like a Super Puppy and play catch for a couple hours. You're going to get hundreds of good power throws in 2 hours. You'll play around the golf, you're going to get 18 hard throws in 2 hours. So there's more than to golf. That's why ball golfers go out to a driving range to work on it. So I came back to Richmond after grad school, and I hooked up with a bunch of guys playing sort of the guts type game down at Virginia Commonwealth University, a little place called Schaefer Court, nice smooth cement court, lit up at night with mercury lights. One of my regular partners was a nighttime DJ. He'd get off work at midnight, and we'd go out at 1 o'clock from 1 to 3 in the morning and just jam back and forth, back and forth. And that's what we did. In 1976, a radio station in Richmond had a big city tournament, guts, distance, accuracy, and freestyle. And so I got a 5-man guts team, and we won guts 2 out of 3. I won distance with a massive, probably 78-yard throw. And so by winning guts, the station gave us $100 to go to a big tournament down in Alabama, run by Tom Monroe, the Southeast Regional at Florence, Alabama, University of North Alabama. And this was really a turning point in my life to find out what's going on outside of my circle of friends that just jam back and forth for hours. I played my first round of disc golf. This was an object course on a campus, and the first hole was downhill and across the street and back up to a barrel, and I aced my first hole ever, so nowhere to go but down after that. Played disc golf, took a tournament for a trophy for 5th place in distance, met some of the great legends even at that time, Dan Roddick, Stork, Joe Cahow, Monica Liu, Tom Monroe, of course, who ran the tournament, and I got really introduced to what was going on outside my own area, and that really was a big turning point for me. Starting in 1977, Virginia State Tournament started, and with the group here at Mary Washington College, and that's been just a main focal point for anyone in the whole Mid-Atlantic region, and now even nationally. So that's Frisbee's been a very important part of my life. It's more than just a game. It's the Frisbee family. It's a very real thing, and I see people from all over, and we've become very good friends. Very few, if any, great Frisbee players I've ever seen, when you're just sitting around talking with them, you would get any sense that they are great players. They're just regular people like anyone else, and it's a fantastic sport, and it's been a big turning point in my life and a big part of my life. Year 20 was a big year. At that point, there were, I think, 3 or 4 of us who had been to every tournament, and they had a nice commemorative disc with a very nice commemorative carved box with a sliding front they gave us. At the 30th year, it was down to myself, Eric Wooten, who've competed in every tournament, and Hugh Lowry, who's been and still has been in every tournament. And the tournament disc that year had our pictures on it. At that point, it's really something you didn't want to give up. And I am pleased to share it with Eric and Hugh. I would never want it on my own. Sharing something like that is a special thing, because they're great people and great players. And Eric's son, Hunter, now has been competing fantastic for many years. His daughter Heather comes to all the tournaments, and Bonnie couldn't be here this year, his wife. They met on the campus back when they were students back here in the late 70s. She comes almost every year. And also a former player who passed away a few years ago, Dave Griffin, Big Daddy, his daughter Jennifer has been competing great for a number of years. And for a few years now, she's been bringing her daughters. They're too small to play now, but now we've got grandkids of players coming to the tournament. It's a family thing. It's a social thing. It's one of a kind. My favorite event, MTA, Maximum Time Aloft. A big turning point for me was, in fact, if you've seen Larry Schindell's discussion recently, Larry started the Smithsonian Frisbee Festivals, and those were typically on a Sunday, and the Saturday before was sort of a play day for all of us who were going to be staff for that. And one day in particular, it was a beautiful Saturday, and we were hanging out at the Washington Monument, and we were throwing MTA on the west side of the monument grounds, and the wind was such that we're throwing up toward the monument, and then the disc is falling away from the monument. If you know the area, you know it's downhill. So you're running downhill, adding 3 or 4 seconds easily to every throw, and you're making these great catches. And that just was a turning point for me. What a great event. And I'm fortunate to have won MTA here in 1986. I've been a finalist 5 times. I've come in second twice. It's a great event that anybody can, if you work at it, you can get to the top ranks by practice, by always an amount of luck. Any great sport has a luck element. MTA is way up there. Reading the wind. You don't have to wait for other people to show up to play. You can go out and play on your own and work, and it's a great way to stay in shape as well. But it's a fun event, and that is always been my favorite event for many years now. 52 years coming up in June. Well, I'd have to be when I won MTA, because that's just been, that was a thrill. And because the competition, especially at this tournament, is very steep, and people coming from all over it. Even back in 1986, which was probably the 10th year of the tournament, very competitive tournament, and people coming from not just Virginia, but up and down the East Coast and from even all over the country. I also at that time actually in those 2-year spans won first place Maryland State Tournament and North Carolina State Tournament. And in 1986, I set the Masters, which is age 35 and over, MTA record, 12.69. I held that record for 15 months. It was broken at the 1987 US Open by a gentleman who held it for 1 day, because it was broken again the next day. So if he didn't write home that night, he didn't get to write home about it. But I keep chasing the Grandmaster, Senior Grandmaster, and Legend. Can't do it. Too many great players out there. But I think the MTA, just my success at MTA, but I always feel that I know more about it now than I did before, even though I had success before, because there's always more to learn about your own body, your own competence, your own ability to to go for the ones that are hard to get. If you don't go for ones that are impossible to reach, you'll never get the ones that you barely could reach. So I say the greatest throws are the ones you can dive for and catch and thrill the crowd. But if you dive for it and you couldn't get to it, that's okay. You have to do those as well. And just get up and say, I'll get the next one. But one great thing has been just about all the people that play have a great sense of camaraderie and sportsmanship. Many Frisbee sports are totally player refereed. And that's one fantastic aspect of it. It's people share advice, and there are other sports that do that as well. Frisbee's especially interesting because there's so many different games that we play, from double disc court and freestyle to individual events like MTA, and of course disc golf, which is a super big sport, and people have been playing disc golf all over. You occasionally run into people that never heard of it, but fewer and fewer. Most towns of any size are going to have a few courses, or you can set up an object course. We have an object tournament in Richmond that we just had our 33rd year. I started the tournament in 1984 at a big park called Maymont Park, which was an old estate deeded to the city back in the 1930s or 40s. It's part zoo, part Victorian mansion. It's about 105 acres, and every December we mark the course with surveyor tape and have a tournament. So you don't need an official pole hole course in an official parkland. You want to find a place that's safe and a place that you can control the traffic patterns. There are not many people walking around, but you can set up an object course. Campuses are great for that. It's hard to do it sometimes with the heavy-duty discs that we use these days, but some tournaments use lighter plastic restriction for tournaments so that you can play in certain areas. So that's something that you can do. Old Frisbees had one line on the bottom. They always had play, catch, invent games. And there are more games going on with Frisbee than almost any other one kind of object. Used to be considered a toy. We only jokingly say that now. It's a real sport with a huge variety to it. And there'll be even more games invented. So who knows what the future brings. But flat flip, fly straight, tilted flip curves, play, catch, invent games.